Hello and welcome to the 15-minute show, part of the Arsenal Therapy podcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam Keys, and today I am joined by Monty. How are you doing, mate?
I'm not too bad. Thank you, Adam. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. Audio issues aside this morning, I'm good. Glad to be here. And it feels like we've had a busy week. We did the main pod last night, straight back on this morning, giving all you guys more of the 15-minute show. And today we are going to have a focus on Gabriel Jesus. Obviously, he missed the game against Liverpool, which is part of what has sparked this discussion. And his goal scoring record has put him in the headlines all season. But look, Monty, the two of us are big Gabriel Jesus fans. We love the guy. We know what he offers. But just give me your initial, very quick thoughts on Jesus and I guess where he is right now in the Arsenal team and how important he is to the setup.
Yeah, in short, I think he's attractive to look at in terms of his style of play and what he does and what he brings to the team, and it's great. But what he's lacked, he doesn't give me a killer mentality. That's the only thing I think he lacks. But if he adds it to his game, he's like a serious baller. But apart from that, he's very good on the ball. He brings a lot to the team, and I think he ups our whole level across the team because he's just so demanding. So as an overall class player, I just think he needs to be a lot more ruthless. Like his misses and like the fact that he misses absolute sitters, like for instance that one against Forest, and then he hits the one you've just got up there now, like through his legs at a ridiculous angle, just makes no sense. If he can just be a bit more proficient in front of goal in easy situations, I think we'll be a lot more calmer this season. But yeah, that my initial thoughts. But overall, I really like the player, and I think he's up to our game.
Yeah,
Overall.
100%. I think that's a pretty good analysis of Jesus, and we know how much quality he brings to the team. And the injury itself is one that I guess the good news has come out after the game that Arteta said he will be back in a few days. It's a knee injury, but it's days, not weeks. And this is the same thing that kept him out of Liverpool in the FA Cup as well. But the worrying thing is obviously last year, he had the knee injury that kept him out over 3 months. Then in the summer, he had the cleanup surgery, which kept him out about a month again. Then he picked up another knock, which kept him out again. And we're now on to the kind of the fourth period that he's missed of the season through injury. And two of those spells were actually quite long periods of time. One was actually a hamstring injury. So different injury, but it still kind of points to the case that this is a very injury prone player and something that we should be concerned about. But one of the things with Gabriel Jesus is if you look at kind of his goal scoring record, his impact on the team, the number of games where he's scored without his team losing is 60 games, which is more than any other player in the league. And if you look at the company he's in there, James Milner, Diogo Jota, and what's that? Sorry,
that's consecutive as well. For
yeah,
Jesus.
so he's still yet to lose a game where he scored in. So that's something that's a big thing for Arsenal in the Premier League. And it's just, I think it all points to the same thing which you just said. It's being more proficient in front of goal. It's having that killer instinct. And as you've just said, he has those frustrating moments because he misses very easy chances. And then he puts it through Matt Turner's legs from an impossible angle. And I do think Matt Turner was partially at fault there, but it does kind of point to this erratic striker that he's almost got that Theo Walcott sense about him. You know, with Walcott, he used to go through, if it was an instinct finish, Walcott was as good as they came. Give Walcott time and he would panic. And yes, he scored some good goals one-on-one, but the majority of his big goals came like snapshots and so on, where he was running across goal. But Gabriel Jesus isn't he's not blind to this. And he came out after the Forest game and said that he's been living with pressure his whole life. He is close to 100 goals in the Premier League. He's actually a fair bit off. So I think that was a bit of a stretch to say he's close to 100. But one of the things he did admit was what he said about him not being focused on scoring goals was probably a mistake. And that's something I think possibly somewhat lost in translation. And I think what he actually meant in that circumstance after the Brazil game was that he's a player that brings much, much more to the team than just goals. He's a player that focuses on the whole picture. He is not your traditional number 9, which I think is fair. And just give me your thoughts on that, because do you think what he said and kind of that mentality has crept into the media headlines and our fan base being overcritical of him when perhaps it is just the finishing that's lacking?
Yeah, I think it's literally just the finishing. I mean, when you talk about what he does off the ball, I mean, you look at his possession stats, it's ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, he's averaging like 47 touches per game as the out and out striker, which is putting him in the 95 percentile. He's got average carries, is 30 carries a game, which is 95 percentile as well. Receiving only 34 passes. So he's only taken about 1.5 touches from the pass. So it's getting into, he's in those boxes, he's receiving those balls in dangerous areas. His take-ons as well, like he does everything that needs to be done. Like even his defensive stats are in ridiculously high for a striker. I mean, you got his passes blocked 99 percentile, 1.21 a game. His blocks 1.29, 99 percentile. Dribble is tackled, he's got just under 1. Dribble is challenge. He does everything off the ball. The only thing that he is lacking, and compared to his other strikers, is the goals per 90. I mean, he's only averaging 0.55, which is a 77 percentile compared to all the other players in the top 5 leagues. But his goals and assists is a little bit higher at 0.78. But I just think if he adds that ruthlessness to his game and scores those half chances, he's a serious player. Like he will be a very, very serious player, because what he does to get into those situations, like the Nottingham Forest game, for instance, when he has that touch, he flicks it over the defender and then he spins the man and like shoots. If he scores that, you're like every player's or rival fans looking at Jesus going, fucking Jesus, do you know what I mean? Like this is a
Yeah. This
threat.
is a player. This
This
is a
is a
proper
player.
player. And I think it's that kind of street football from Brazil that you see that we talk about the artists of the game being gone, but actually players like Jesus are those artists. Alexis Sanchez was one of those players as well. Alexis was just a bit more clinical than Jesus. And I think if you look at his non-penalty goals and assists per 90, if you look at the company he's in there, the only players ahead of him are Thierry Henry, Sergio Aguero, Mo Salah, Robin van Persie, and Didier Drogba. And when you look at all the players below him, it shows what a player Jesus is, given that he's been in the Premier League, 6-7 years now? Must be 7. And so he's played a lot of games. So this isn't a guy we're looking at a one season average and comparing him with season pros. A lot of these players played in the league a similar length of time to him, and it shows just how good he is. And a big part of Jesus' problem is always going to be his injury record. And when you look at this now, it doesn't make for nice reading. And one of the kind of most worrying things there is you've got multiple knee injuries. And already just on this, the ones that are actually registered, there's 4 knee injuries down. And that's not including things where he's maybe got a bit of fluid in the knee, like the Liverpool game that we've just played, which isn't listed here. And games like that where he's only missing 1 game and it's a minor injury, but it's still keeping him out. It's still disrupting his rhythm. And that's the big thing. We look at he's had torn knee ligaments twice. That takes its toll. Those long-term injuries where you're away from the grass for an extended period, it has an effect on your body as a whole. Completely disrupts how you're playing. And the longer you're out, the longer the recovery is. Each injury takes its toll on your body. And we've seen his weight fluctuate as well. And although it is funny, when you see him in the flesh, he looks as thin as any other player. But I think he is someone on camera, he looks like he's carrying a bit more weight. Whereas when I was watching him at Forest, and that goal was scored right in front of me. He looks lean. He looks very, very fit at the minute, even though some of the pictures would suggest otherwise. But this is one of the key reasons why Arsenal can't rely on Gabriel Jesus as a nine. Quality wise, he's as good as anyone, but you need your nine to be fit. And the worrying thing is, one of the big targets we're looking at is Victor Osimhen. He's a player with a similarly ugly injury record. He's not someone that we look at and think, you know what, he'll guarantee 35 games a season in the league in the way Harry Kane did, the way Haaland did last year. But we're seeing a lot of strikers now. Ivan Toney's one of the few with a relatively clean injury record, and I don't know if Toney is good enough to be the man that really leads Arsenal. But again, if you look at the players with the kind of minutes per goal or assist, Jesus is again right in there, and it's since 2003, 2004. He's averaging a goal or an assist every 84 minutes in the Champions League. I mean, look at the players he's surrounded by there: Haaland, Mbappe, Messi, Lewandowski. Once again, that's not bad company, and it shows this is a guy with real talent. And it's the question I guess I have for you is, will he ever improve that goal scoring? Is it something? Is it positional? Is it mindset? Because he also doesn't have the volume of shots that, say, for example, a Darwin Nunez, great mover, bad finisher, but he gets volume. And Nunez will have a season where he bangs in 25, 30 goals. And that will come because his movement's so good and his chance volume is so high.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll necessarily become a majorly proficient striker, scoring like 30 plus goals a season. I don't really see that in him, but I definitely see him scoring doing like a season where he's scoring, I don't know, 20 goals, getting 10, 12 assists. I can definitely see that. But even though we discussed the other week for sort of transfers, if we went in the summer, bought in a proper striker, we could see Jesus dropping on the wings. And he could be dangerous from the wings because he loves to step in. When you start getting him dribbling, and because a lot of his goals actually comes from the byline, even from his striker position, he runs
He
down.
goes out to in.
He goes out and cuts in. So if you put him on the wing, naturally we buy a striker per se, and Jesus can step in, and Nketiah will be the sort of the more traditional replacement, and then by allowing Jesus to free up, we don't actually have to buy a winger because Jesus can go on the left and the right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of getting two players in one. I think you'd get a better output from Jesus there. And that's similar to what he was doing at Man City as well. Like he was playing on the wings, and that was where he was being quite proficient as well, because that's what he likes to do. He likes to take people on. And I feel like he can take centre backs on, but he's much better against fullbacks because they're not strong, they're not as physical. And like you said, he's not exactly the biggest guy, but he's very tricky. He can draw fouls. He can take people down to the byline. Yeah, he's just you know what I mean. It's that, like you said, it's that Brazilian street football. Like he's like the guy you want in a cage in a 5v5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't ever see him being like a Harry Kane or a Lewandowski or a Haaland banging 30 plus goals. I never see that in him. I just don't see it. But I definitely see him having the GA that could match them in the terms of if you include his assist as well. But I think for him it's more of a mental thing. There's nothing wrong with his skill.
Well,
No one's got
actually,
any
just
issue with his skill.
on the mental thing. So the clip I've got up on the screen right now was something I was going to ask you about the mental thing, and he was quite open about kind of when Pep picked Zinchenko as a false nine and dropped him in a huge game. That was the point where he decided he was leaving City. He rang his mother in tears and so on, and he just couldn't handle it. How much do you think these things have to do with, and also Pep playing him as a winger when he didn't have a striker? Do you think that feeds into Jesus's mentality as a maybe not fully believing he's a striker because of he only started playing as a striker when he was 18, so he grew up as a winger, and then Pep played him as a striker, but then Pep seemed to lose faith in him as a striker. So do you think that affected him mentally?
I think maybe a little bit, but he kind of, and I mean, not in terms of quality, but I mean, the stats tell you that he is up there. It's quite a similar transition to, I don't know, when we got like Henri per se, and he was a winger, comes more as a striker, but he was more of like an inside forward because he used to sit on that box. But we used to have another player up with him in Dennis Bergkamp that used to support him and allow him that space. I feel like if Jesus had like a sort of second player up there, like for instance, if he was playing in that Liverpool game, I think he would have done a lot better because we looked at the average positioning of the players, and basically the whole front four are pretty much aligned. That's when you get the best out of him because he can take people on one. But mentality wise, I mean, getting benched for a fullback is just that's gonna do anybody in. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
you are, you know. That's when you're gonna go, is he taking a piss here? So yeah, I can imagine that would have some form of some sort of impact. But then when Arteta came in, he said, "Mate, like I believe in you. Like you're my guy." And then he started getting him what he did. He started bringing that winning mentality over, and we saw when he came into the team, it was just a completely different team. Um, I mean, on
Yeah,
the
absolutely. I
mentality
think
side, the only thing- go on.
just on mentality as well. This is a quote from Pep, from February 2022 when he was still at City, still playing regularly, and he said he's the best player in the world at implementing a high intensity pressing game. And again, that feeds into what you've just been saying about those four players, getting them really closing down. The way we played against Liverpool at the weekend, the way he played against City on the wing earlier in the season, that summed up what Jesus can really do and shows kind of him not just as a goal scorer and that nine, but as a player that offers much, much more to the team.
Yeah, 100%. And it's what he can, like you said, what he can do off the ball, and it's just his desire. Like he's a lead by example person. Like he's always running. He's always running. He never really sits there and does nothing. And that's what you want from your striker. He's always getting the ball in the right places. He carries it forward. He's very accurate with his passes as well. Hardly ever see him make a wayward pass. And
Yeah,
he's getting the ball, like you can see in his shot maps. Like he's getting the ball in ideal locations. I think his average shot distance is 11 yards, which is one of
which you
the,
can see from the graphic as well. So this
yeah,
has come
it's
from
like,
FootMob, and one of my concerns about this is 41 shots isn't a lot. 4 goals, XG of 5.38. I think the reality is Gabriel Jesus, he needs a higher XG because I think he's
yes.
always going to be a player that underperforms his XG. But I want to see him having 60 shots in this period, 70 shots in this period, and really shooting more, getting into those positions more. And that does probably mean if he's playing as a nine, he mentioned after the Forest game, Arteta said he wanted him more central. He didn't want him going as wide as often. And that's something that I think that we probably we need to see more. We need to see him in those positions where he can really hurt the opposition and cause problems. And again, you can see his shots there on from a different angle where he
Mhm.
actually hits the goal. He's a player that a lot of these are going fairly central. He's not the most accurate finisher. And even when he was warming up against Forest, I was watching players very keenly because I'm a nerd like that. And watching Odegaard, Ben White, Saka all strike the ball just effortlessly. Jesus doesn't have a clean connection on the ball, and he never has done. But again, if you look at these are just some of the points that you've already made, but touches where he ranks 94 percentile, chance creation 84th percentile, aerial duels. It doesn't actually win a huge number, but it enables us to win the second ball time and time
Mhm.
again, and that's something Sean Dyche does better than anyone. He makes sure his team win that second ball time and time again. He doesn't always care about the first ball, but as you win the second, it's the second ball that wins you attacks. It gets you into positions. Winning the first ball is a luxury. Because if you lose the second ball, the opposition have it again. But again, one of the things that is a bit concerning is the goals and the shot attempts where he actually lies 64, 76. That isn't good enough. This is where we can't rely on him as a nine if we want to
Mhm.
challenge for the biggest honors. And this is where we need the upgrade. So again, this is what I'm saying. He needs that higher XG. he's only going to get that by getting into those positions, hitting more shots, and really enabling his teammates to create for him and not being the sole creator himself. And again, when we look at his season heat map, this kind of plays into what we've just been saying. He has touched the ball in almost every part of the pitch. He's being dragged all over, very kind of heavily dominant on that left-hand side. He's popping up a lot on the right this year, even a lot in
He
the
always
right.
shows with the ball. He just
He's
always wants the ball.
looking for the ball. And quite often we'll see him coming really deep into the 8 positions, getting it. I still think he could play as an 8 against a low block just because he's wild and he chases back. And you've got Declan Rice sweeping up behind him. But I want to see his heat map much more central. So in that area around the edge of the box, not as much drifting left. And I want to see our 8 support Martinelli more. I want to see Zinchenko supporting Martinelli more. And those players doing it so that when Martinelli lifts his head, which doesn't happen very often, he's got someone to aim for in the box. And Jesus isn't 5 yards from him and drawing that extra defender. But again, these are some of the stats that you've already read out. And we have discussed already. 4 goals. It's not a great number. His XG 5.38, again, not a great number. Goal conversion, this is the biggest worry, 10% conversion rate. That isn't good enough for a player playing for Arsenal. All the other stats are fantastic. His touches, his chance creation, but he has missed 6 big chances as well this season. He is a player that we need a lot more from. What we're getting right now simply isn't good enough, and it has to improve. We see it in the Champions League. We see the player he is. We see how good he is. But this is where Arsenal need that upgrade in the summer. And that doesn't mean Jesus leaving, by the way. So again, it's defensive numbers. He's making a lot of interceptions per game, tackles per game. He wins possession, 2.6 recoveries per game, which is wild for a striker. And he's a player that we just need to see really being involved in the box as opposed to outside it. But one of the things I wanted to run through quickly with you, because we're running out of time here, is his stats compared to Toney, Richarlison, Erling Haaland, and Darwin Nunez. Now, if you look at Haaland's stats, look where he's green: conversion rate, goals. That's it. Haaland doesn't do anything else. He got an assist for Foden last night, but Haaland is a player. He's a central focal point, and he does nothing else. Low touches, doesn't create a lot. Darwin Nunez hits a lot of shots, exactly what you would expect. The eye test doesn't lie there. He's actually quite high for assists, Nunez, but a lot of that will come from playing wide. Ivan Toney has the highest shot percentage accuracy. Richarlison's the worst for every stat per 90, but even though he has got 9 goals in 8 games. And Jesus, chances created really high in comparison to everyone else, 1.9 per game. And only Nunez comes close with 1.6. And again, that's because he's played on the wing a lot. And Jesus, through ball attempts, if you look at Ivan Toney, 0, 0.2 for Richarlison, 0.2 for Haaland, 0.2 for Nunez. Jesus is that much more creative player. And I do think if we can get that big 9 in the summer, really upgrade on Jesus, we can play Jesus, get him on the wing. And I also believe he can play nearly every game when he's fit, but he's just not that immediate first choice striker. And this is where we can improve.
Thing is, if you get him on the wing, you can rest Martinelli, rest Saka, like you can alternate him resting. You just rotate that free and then they never get tired. You could just go throughout the whole season and they never get tired. Because you've got a striker comes in and you can rest a striker, you put Jesus in the striker so they all 3 of them play. Then you put the striker back in for the next game and you can put Jesus on the wing, or you can make him sub for Martinelli. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone will get game time. And I think because we have that depth and we get that ruthlessness up front, we can go deep into the cup competitions. Because when it comes to cup competitions, you need ruthlessness. That's why Liverpool beat us in the FA Cup. And it's why we got knocked out of the League Cup. We just weren't ruthless with our chances. It was as simple as that.
100%. And just to wrap up, one word answer. You have one striker to upgrade to in the summer. Who is that striker going to be?
Anyone.
Anyone.
Fantasy? Dreamland?
Dreamland.
Mbappe, give it. Yeah,
and
get it.
and then and one realistic.
I mean, I would love a Lewis Openda, personally.
Great shout. So, well, thank you to everyone that's joined. Please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Join us again on Friday for the show, where we will be running through a bit of a preview for the West Ham game and rejoicing and celebrating again a bit more of the Liverpool game. So have a great day. Thank you. Good night.